You're watching the free version of Silhouette Essentials. For projects and footage, head to borisfx.com for the premium download.
So I can select all of my paint strokes here, and there's a lot of them. So I can just select the group here. And for this auto paint, there's no need to select a tracked layer from the transform pull down or select match move, since we are already working on a stabilized, unwarped plate from the upstream nodes. So all I have to do is just click play. I did speed up this auto paint in the post-production process. It probably took about a minute or so. It's just very memory intensive. Okay, so let's just look at this here. It looks a little bit funny. There's a few more things we need to do to incorporate this paint into our tree here. So what I'm going to do is copy this power mesh node here, copy, and then paste it. And I'm going to hook this up to the paint node here, but I'm going to do the paint only because I only want to warp the painted areas. And then I want to make sure that this node can access the data from the Mocha Pro node. And we'll just hook that up here to the data port. I'm going to add a dot here and just bring this out. We have a little more room to see where our nodes are connected. That's why I use the curved lines, because if they're straight, sometimes I just can't see where the input lines are hooked up to inputs and outputs for the nodes. So then down in the Power Mesh node here, I'm going to select Warp and make sure Best is selected, and it is. And now we need to composite the paint. So bring in the Composite node, and we'll hook up our source here, and then we're going to hook up our paint over our source. And then we'll take a look. Now we can see our paint in action. And then there's another thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to hook up some roto on this side so we can bring in some of the outside edge over the paint, because it's kind of painted out a little bit into the background. So I can do that by bringing in the tracking we already used. I can click on the Mocha Pro node. I'm just going to move it over here temporarily and click on the 3-dot menu, create roto node. And then I'll just move this back. And I don't need the mesh. I don't need this area here. I just want this mat. I'm going to do a few operations here. I'm going to give that a soft edge. I'm going to enable motion blur. Any kind of motion you can get out of the tracking, it's always a good idea. So I'll enable that. And then I need to composite this background over the paint. So I'll bring in another composite node. And we'll hook that up below. We have our input there. And then we're just going to hook up this roto mat here. So now you can see that I have the background over some of my paint, but I can also just move this mat if it's sticking in too much. And I can do this while I can be in the edit mode in the roto node and the viewing the composite node. So I can kind of see what I'm doing real time. And I'll click M again to get out of multi-frame. So it's kind of taken away some of that extra paint. Go back down here. Actually, I'm going to do a little more editing. Click on the edit button here, the composite node here. And I'll just bring that in. So I can see in this example, it's kind of bringing in more of the paint, but this was a little bit of a rough job because it's the demo, and I can show you my final here in just a second. Okay, we'll zoom out, maybe zoom in a little bit here. And so this is sort of the demo for the class. And the main thing to look at here is the paint sticking to the tracking? And it looks pretty good. And there's always like a frame at the end that doesn't work. And I'll just paint that in a separate session. And I kind of make a separate session to paint all the touch-ups in anyway. So what we've basically done is we painted it and then we've just reversed the warp and composited over the background. And I'll just take one more quick look through. And I'm going to take you over to my final. So here is my final tree that I did. So here we have our source and we have our Mocha Pro node here and our power mesh set to unwarp. And then we've painted and then we warped the paint back in, composited it over, and then I brought in a mat to fix some edges here. So you can see this result. Since painting is kind of an organic process, you're going to get a little bit of a different result each time. And then I added an alpha threshold to make the alpha larger, get rid of any transparent edges. And then I have my output. And so my output here is the PowerMesh _ paint, and that's a pre-comp because any paint touch-ups I want to do in a separate session. So this last frame that didn't work, and then maybe some other touch-ups here and there that I notice when I'm scrolling through. And next up, we'll go to the paint touch-up session.